Hey everybody, how you doing? Looks like we made it to another week. So very glad to see you guys. And so look, this is part 6. So how cool is that? So let's see who we have. We have Mike S. Good to see you. Willie, of course. Tone, always a pleasure. Philip M. So we have a nice little group going on right now. Let's go ahead and get rid of this little message there. So this is getting into the nitty gritty, you know. This is getting into the part where we start coming in with the medium, then the dark mixture. And so I think that's good. How about now? You guys still, can you hear me? I hope so. Let's see. So let me know you hear good audio, guys. Always need your help, you know? You guys are my eyes and ears. So I'm very quickly to make sure part 6 is up and running. Okay, sound seems to be good. So that makes me happy. Okay, picture quality looks good. Everything looks good. So I was a minute late because I had to get some of my tea, which was pomegranate and lemon. So you can't rush tea, you know. You rush tea and it comes out horrible. So we have to make sure we take our time when we make a cup of tea. Good cup of tea. I think that's the Irish in me. The Irish and the English. We know how to make tea, you know. So thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. So like always, we have the two. Let me go ahead and get a wipe. So as we're continuing the 2 airbrush system, and that's very important because you don't have to switch, you know, loading and unloading airbrush when you're going from the light mixture to the dark mixture. YouTube had somebody flag it, and they accidentally deleted it, and then they reviewed it, and of course it was fine. So thank God that was resolved, right guys? Thank God for that. Remember, always, if you haven't, hit the like button on the video, and also subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And let's go ahead and jump right into it. So before I do that, I'm going to go to my program, which is Pure Ref. If you haven't downloaded it before now, please go ahead and do it. It will be one of the best things you've done. Trust me. Really is great. Let's see if I can pull up Gene. That's the wrong Gene. Let me close this out, and we'll be ready to go in just 3 shakes of a lamb's tail. There we go. So how's everybody doing this week? Everyone having a good week so far? Hey John, how's it going? Good to see you. Oh, so now Willie says it saves ink. So what is it that saves ink, my friend? It could have been, right? It could have been someone who just wasn't happy, but you know, I realize we can't make everyone happy. But I hope they don't ruin it for everyone and do that again, because, you know, it kind of put a damper on the evening, you know, and so we're not going to please everybody. That's the main thing. Oh yes, the 2 airbrush system is really great, and you're right, Willie, it does save on ink. Very astute, because you don't have to dump out a remainder of, let's say, your light mixture or your dark mixture when going from one tone to another. So that's actually very true. So right now I'm in my medium mixture. Usually I will go right in with the light mixture, but I have been working on airbrushing today, so I'm pretty warmed up. But when you warm up, when you're, you know, doing your airbrushing for the first time on your project, please make sure you start with the light mixture. That's a very good, a good motto because, and a good practice because in the light mixture, all your decisions are not heightened, you know what I mean? So definitely that's something that you don't want to start with a medium or dark mixture. I'm just going to put a little more light on my painting there. And the hair is always a good place to go ahead and warm up, I think. And pretty soon I'm going to jump right in with the dark mixture, but you know, you definitely want to set up for that. You don't want to go straight in. You want to do some 1 second rule work now. Make sure that everything is going to be in its right place, because once you put the dark down, the dark is a lot more of a commitment, you know? So you definitely want to be sure. So the airbrush is the Extreme Patriot Arrow. The inks are my Airbrush India inks, which are on sale right now for $16.95. And for a limited time, I throw in some extra inks. So if you haven't purchased these inks yet, and you're having trouble with your control, you owe it to yourself to get some. It will give your airbrush more control and more concise aim. Just so many different things that you will love when you go ahead and purchase my inks that I'm using here. Plus you have all my videos which show you how to do it, including this one. So you see, I'm really working very abstract right now. See if I can lower the, there we go, maybe that's a little bit better. And, okay, down here, you can see I neglected detail on that, so let's go ahead and work down here a little bit. 1 second rule, guys, so important. I really can't stress it enough. And you don't always have to use two hands. As you can see, I use one hand from time to time, but that's something you want to do when you have more and more experience. If you're starting out and you want to get more control, I definitely go for the two-handed approach. It's just much more steady, right? And that 1 second rule is everything. And you see there are some pencil lines, but they're going to go away once we come in with the dark mixture. A lot of, in the hair, especially in this photo, in this pose, there are a lot of abstract shapes going on. And the thing about hair is that you don't work on it like you would work on a nose or anything. You would develop it in a different way. You would really look for abstract shapes and then find the hair after working on the abstract shapes, if that makes sense. Rather than thinking about its hair, just think of it as these three-dimensional forms that are all over the place, and you really want to, you know, get that and put it in its place and then start working on hair texture. But not really thinking of hair, just thinking of sticking with it and developing that. Hey Wendy, good to see you. How are you? How you been? Thank you so much. Okay, so you see all these abstract shapes, and even up here, you see right here on the edge, I can actually go ahead and define some of these shapes here. And what that does basically is just takes those abstract shapes and really make it feel like hair, really feel like Jean's hair as it was, right? So that's very important. And you know, we're so close to the light mixture, but I definitely want to be ready when it's here, right? You don't want to prematurely, go into your dark mixture. If you haven't worked out what you need to work out in the light mixture, what you need to work out in the medium mixture, going into the dark mixture too early really just ruins the soup. You definitely want to wait for that. Very, very important. We're going to take a sip of my tea. It's very hot. Steve, how's it going? How are you today? Thank you, my friend. Always good to see you, Mr. Johnson. Ah, that tea is really good, guys. Black tea. It's pomegranate and fresh lemon, so really quite amazing. Highly recommend it. And let's move down over here. So once we start coming in with the dark mixture, things are going to get a little more lively. And let's go ahead and start the dark mixture. And I think I'll start the dark mixture in the hair just to get acclimated. So remember, with the 2 airbrush system, bam, I'm right here ready to go with the dark mixture. When you start out, please always, always make sure that you test on a scrap piece of paper. Your needle could be a little further back, something could be off, and that could really ruin weeks of your art, weeks of painting. Well, in this case, because I do 2 hours a week. Okay, so now we're just going to make sure we get proper flow. Okay, we are live with the dark mixture, which is very good. And let's move Jean over. What happened here? Highlights soon, that's for sure. Oh, thank you so much, Steve. Always good to see you, sir. And let's go ahead. I have my reference. 1 second rule in effect. Whether you're doing the light mixture or the dark mixture. Nothing is more important than good observation when painting. And let's go ahead and use our freehand shield here. We're going to crawl along the surface, perpendicular and not parallel. There we go. And wiping your freehand shield between sprays. Go. Perpendicular, not parallel is, oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you, Steve, for that wonderful comment. I appreciate that. Perpendicular, not parallel gives you a lot more control. And so that's what we want when we're putting in a dark next to a light contour that, like that. Now, yes, so perpendicular, not parallel is very important because if we're going parallel, let's just say, for instance, you know, we're spraying parallel like this, right? And then we're coming out. I'll show you that you have this really dark, there's like a dark sort of halo there. You see that? However, if we go ahead and we do parallel, what's going to happen is you're not going to have a halo. So you're going to have correct tone going in that direction. Now, there are times when, yes, parallel is definitely the way to go, but when doing tones, I would definitely say, at least in my travels, is that I get a better effect doing perpendicular, you know? Good question, Steve. Very good question. Thank you for that. Lighten this up just a little bit. There we go. So now with the dark mixture, we are basically working on a lot of large dark areas, right? But also dark accents. So right now I'm going to look at the large dark areas and see where they, may show up, as far as large shapes, and then go more detail later down the line. And I'm always looking at my reference. Even more important than looking at my screen is looking at the reference. There's never a reason when painting that you shouldn't be looking as long as you paint. So really study your model in that one area you're painting, and then paint it for the same amount of time that you're studying it. That's what's going to give you that ability to have realism that a dot matrix printer could have, that an inkjet printer has. An inkjet printer doesn't have half the brains that we do, yet it could go ahead and create something exactly the same of what it senses, and it's not, nearly as smart as we. We just have to tap into that. And as long as we tap into that, then we can do work that's truly incredible. So that's one of the reasons why I love that whole 1 second rule. Try to get that knowledge that even an inkjet printer has. And that's just really paying attention to the information that's there, processing it in your brain before you paint, right? Right, Steve? We have to process that information. Our minds are so complex. We're processing our shopping list. We're processing mortgage payments. We're processing all these different things at the same time. And that's when things, although it's quite efficient and we can do that, but that's when things go off the rails, right? So we don't want that. We don't want things to go off the rails. We want to make sure that we, really are painting and representing what our subject is. And you can see just, by doing, pumping the trigger, keeping the air down with my Extreme Patriot Arrow and my dark mixture from my India inks, I have control, and I'm able to reproduce what I'm seeing, because I am really seeing, not just looking. I'm processing the information. Now, if you think about your brain as a processor, then that's much better than just, saying, how am I going to do this? This is hard. Just think of processing that information, and then taking that processed information and go ahead and transfer it onto your surface through your airbrush. Now the trick is to work as much with your medium so it does exactly what you want it to do. So muscle memory, observation, it's like all pieces of the puzzle. So I see getting this large shape, squinting your eyes. I always say, squint your eyes, guys. If you squint your eyes, then you will see the large shapes, and you won't get involved in the small shapes until you're ready to get involved in the small shapes. My brother once said to me, don't sweat the small stuff, Tim. And, and I loved my brother so much, and I always remember that's one of the last things he said to me. And so even with painting, I don't want to sweat the small stuff. I take his advice in life and also in art, so it's really important. Thanks for that, Mike. Mike said I couldn't do a bad job if I tried. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that nice comment, Mike. Thanks so much, Steve. I appreciate that. And Willie says, Tim, do you think this will be the last part? If it is, it will be great, but I'm not going to rush it. I never rush it, right? I'm going to go back in with the medium mixture. Willie, these things take a life of their own, as you know, right? Sometimes I'll get sidetracked, with a little more detail. So right now, there's this little squiggly part of the hair here. Lower that air pressure. I don't know what that's all about. That was really high. And just going to come up here. Think long and paint short. I don't know about you guys, but I'd much rather be putting down information than fixing information that didn't belong. I don't always get to do that, but, I'm always much happier putting down information than, having to fix stuff that didn't belong there because I wasn't really paying attention, right? Yeah. Yeah, Steve's right. After the pit pastel, right? That's the coup de grace, or the piece de resistance, or something like that. So, Steve, you said you picked up one of these guys. Is that true? The pit pastel? If that is, that's great. You'll find with the sandpaper, it's just the right amount of softness. Remember, process that information. Hey, Wendy's back. How you doing? Okay, so now what we can do is we're just going to continue with our squinting of the eyes, and let's go ahead and hit this dark area right here. So I'm going to go back to my dark mixture, and it's great to have the 2 airbrush system, which I really recommend. Yes, we did miss you very much, Wendy, that's for sure. Willie's definitely right there. Now, right here, it's a little bit of a hard edge, nothing crazy. So I'm just going to crawl along the surface here. Just right here is where there's a hard edge. Just crawl along that surface. And as you crawl along the surface, make sure you clean your freehand shield because it will pick up either ink or paint, whatever you're working on. So definitely want to keep things clean, So we're in the dark mixture right now. We're in the dark. And we're just working on big shapes. And once we work on the big shapes, then the small shapes will reveal themselves. Not the other way around. If we work on small shapes, the big shapes will be lost. Work on big shapes and the small shapes will present themselves. And let's see, so right here on her sleeve, if I'm seeing correctly, it's dark, but it's not as dark. So I'm going to increase my distance here, and I'm going to darken the sleeve, but make sure it's not as dark as the dark here on the side of her breast. Okay, and on this side we have a nice dark going on, and let's go ahead and hit that. Still doing our perpendicular, not parallel. Making sure we're doing our 1 second rule. Now there are going to come times when you're working and you're going to see, well, yeah, the drawing was off. At this stage, you have to live with it. Don't go and try and fix drawing mistakes here. That's not the time. So what you can do is make the best of it and then chalk it up for experience and make sure it doesn't happen next time. So yeah, you don't want to go ahead and make huge reconstructive changes at this point. It's just a bad decision. And my point is also, if you went this far, go all the way. Continue going. Don't stop. So make sure that you're committed. You're committed to it, you know? It's like swimming halfway across the river. Going back is just not a good option at that point. You might as well just keep going to the other side. I think the hair is probably going to keep us, Willie, from finishing this painting today. You know, the hair, like the last painting, I don't know if you guys seen the last painting I did on Facebook. It definitely should have been over a while ago. This is the one that I just did. But the hair needed a lot of attention. So I had to take time with that hair. I couldn't just go ahead and, rush it. So I made sure that I took my time with that. Same thing with the hair we're working on now. We're going to have to take our time. It's going to have to reveal itself. True working from the large to small and then going into textures and edges. So you definitely don't want to speed things up. So yeah, that's exactly what happens. It really pays dividends to really take your time with the hair and not rush it, because although hair is a supporting actor or actress in your painting, without it everything falls apart if it's not done correctly. So that's something. Hey Willie, thank you so much. I appreciate that, my friend. Okay, so now we have this we have the dark mixture in here, so let's see where we could hit some accents here. So now I'm using the dark mixture as dark accents. There, right there. And look, now what's really cool about that, the cast shadow, is usually darker on the edge and then gets nice and a lot of reflected light in here. So I'm going to darken that edge. You're going to see how that shadow or cast shadow of the jewelry really looks very luminescent, I would say. So my guess is, Tim, do you think Harder and Steenbeck airbrush with a 0.15 needle setup would be better for ink than a 0.2? No, I don't think so. I think it really has to do not just with the 0.2 to 0.5, but the construction of the airbrush. How far that needle comes out from the airbrush is really key to the detail that you can get. Also, I'm a Badger guy. I just love the construction. I love how they're interchangeable. I heard great things about Harder and Steenbeck, and I think, I really think that there are other things that are more important than the size of the needle, you know, that millimeter size. So, but good question, definitely. I think it really comes down to what makes you feel comfortable when you work, right? What is it that is best for you? And that's, I think, the most important. So you see right here how it's darker on the edge and then it gets lighter as it goes in further. That is really a wonderful way to make that cast shadow look realistic. Ooh, we have some really nice dark accents here with these pearls, or not sure what they are. There we go, some dark accents. Hey, what's up, Bill? Good to see you, my friend. How you doing? There we go. And then we're just going to really accent those beautiful pearls. Good afternoon, right? Sometimes day and night kind of blends into each other, right? Doesn't it sometimes, Bill? I feel that. How about you, Willie? Okay, so now we've been working on getting some of those large shapes, and you can see as we are working on these large dark shapes, we can also notice how the midtones sort of reveal that they need to be darkened up a bit as well. But as that's going on, let's go ahead and, whoop. Oh, I have it on autofocus. Look at that. Okay, there we go. Let's work on this side first with the dark mixture and work on some of those dark accents, shall we? Okay, so when you're working this much detail, don't stay in the same area. Now, you'll see that there was a little bit of an overspray, but that's something that is easily fixed, but you still want to be very careful. And you see that when it's blown up, but you won't see it when you are looking at it at regular size. There we go. So remember, what we do on one side, we got to do on the other side. So let's... Hey, Leah! What a wonderful surprise! How are you? So good to see you. Leah is an amazing painter. Yeah, you guys got to check out Leah's work. She is just this incredible, incredible artist. So I'm very, very excited to have her on the live stream. So thank you so much, Leah. I appreciate that. And let's move over to the second eye here. And remember, we got to watch out for the dreaded spidering. Ah, thank you, Leah. It's such an honor. And just like that, we are... Oh, you're welcome. Now, Leah has a class, I mean, she has like an online school, I believe, am I right? And you could learn oil painting with her, and I know she does landscapes. You basically paint everything, right? Which is really, really amazing, and just the level of her work is, so if you ever want to learn oil painting, I think she's the person I would go to. So you see, we're just working on some of the darker shapes here, and we're setting up for the white pastel that's going to come soon. Now, what I can do is I'll just blow back up and you can see Whoop, there we go. Okay. So you can see that, you know, even though it looked like I didn't do much, it's just creating just a little more detail, setting up for those highlights. Because the highlights really won't show up unless you have a darker area. So, you know, one of the things that I used to do was I was wondering why my highlights weren't very spectacular, is because what was around the highlights was too close in value to it. So that's one way to really pop out those lights. Now I do see on this one nostril that it is very dark, the nostril on the left. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. Now we can go with the medium mixture and see if that's dark enough. And I think that's what I'm going to do. Yes, let's go with the medium mixture. And let's see if the medium mixture will suffice. And I think so. Now we do have a little bit of spidering, but like I said, it's going to show up a lot more when we're blowing it up. But you can see we can get rid of it. And let's move on over here. There we go. Now over here we might have a little bit of pencil line that we might be able to neutralize, and we did. Thank goodness. But even if we didn't neutralize that pencil line, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Now, in the medium mixture, I definitely want to increase my distance when I'm doing very subtle detail, like the Cupid's bow here. And then really squint your eyes and see where it's a little bit darker. It's a little bit darker underneath this nostril. And so we're definitely looking to get variation of tones within these large shapes. And I think that what gives it the dynamic quality of making it feel like it's going in and out of space. So Mike says, same here with Days and Nights, Bill and Willie especially, his legs messed up. Oh man, how's your legs? Are you okay, my friend? I know you were having trouble with your back. I remember that. So I do pay attention to you guys and girls. Okay, see how that's a little strong? So I'm going to change my distance. Now when you change your distance, it gets lighter and the gradation is smoother. There we go. Now if we look down here, so we want to move down, and we can see like right here that it's a little bit darker underneath her bottom lip. And this is all setting up for the white pastel. There we go. Over here, what's interesting, a lot of times the shapes that you're looking for are not defined by the shape itself, but by the shape adjacent to it. And a perfect example would be the wing of this nostril. So I'm going to cover it with this freehand shield like that. And I'm going to be a good distance away. I would say probably 3 inches. And I'm just going to dust. But I'm going to do the 1 second rule. I'm going to watch what I'm doing first. And we can see as we are doing this, without doing anything to the nostril kind of reveals itself. And that's important. Go. And okay, so we do have some shapes in this nose, so we wanna definitely do the subtle shape of the nose as it comes up and get that sort of an indication of that side plane. And let's just now right in the corner of her mouth, it's a little darker. So I'm not going to be with the dark mixture. I'm going to have the medium mixture. Medium mixture will keep me from going too dark. There we go. Okay, so when you zoom out, you'll see that we're getting some really nice gradations. The detail, I'm a little further away, so let's zoom in just a tad. And let's de-emphasize this just a little bit. And you can see the inks do erase nicely. You can adjust them, so that's good. And my guest says he popped something in his back last Monday and was unable to, oh wow, I hope you feel better. Advil's really good, right? Is it Advil or what's the other one? Aleve. Took a quick sip of my drink. Okay, so let's start doing some fun stuff. And let me just lighten this up just a tad. And what I want to do is start working on some of those really nice pearls. Now, what I like to do is take a Pit Pastel medium. It's a pastel pencil, which is like my go-to. And so what I would like to do, what I always do, is take a piece of sandpaper. And this is not a fine sand, it's like a medium ground. And what I do is I transfer the pastel on there. So then I take a clean stump or tortilla, whatever, I'm not sure, but that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the tortilla and the pastel like paint in a brush. So that's going to be cool. So let's go ahead and make this happen. Maybe we can go one stop lighter. Okay. All right, so 1 second rule. Really pay attention to what we're looking at. And we're just going to start hitting that white there. See, it's all building up for this. We're just going to hit that white. And rather than, working with a pencil point from the pastel pencil, this is much more control. There we go. So you see how things are starting to pop a little bit. And this is just the first couple of indications, and then we go from there. There we go. And I think Steve says, boom, boom, bang. I appreciate that, Steve. Steve always loves the part when I come in with the white pastel after weeks of, with the ink mixtures and airbrushing. This is Steve's favorite part. So always appreciate your enthusiasm, my friend. Okay, so now we're just going to repeat some of that over here. Let me get my trusty art glove. Now, I never seen an art glove like this until I started doing digital art, and it came with the digital equipment, and I thought that was pretty cool. So definitely get yourself an art glove. Keeps you from smudging, or should I say keeps me from smudging my work. Oh, thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's all in setting it up, right, Leah? It's like getting it all ready, all the preparation. And it just seems to pop out, which I do love. There we go. And we definitely can come in with even a softer pastel. If I want to go even, stronger with pastel, I have a Rembrandt here. And I believe I have a piece of a Sennelier. So I definitely can go even stronger. and just build that up, you know. So right here, I always think of Vermeer when doing stuff like this and how he just sort of popped out those lights. You know, of course he used the camera obscurer, but you know, the ends do justify the means. There we go. And you know, we're just doing it on these little pearls. For one, just to pop out some of the detail, but also to gauge the light so we know how light to go in the future when we do into the face and stuff like that. Oh, digital art mastery. And I'm definitely gonna do one this week. I have that first one, which, you know, of using filter masks and, you know, changing your photos to get them ready for your painting, that sort of thing. Steve says the end is always the final hooray or hurrah. Thank you, my friend. There we go, and we can go ahead, but it's just like Vermeer, you know, just those couple of strokes here and there really pop out. So Wendy says, good news, if you have a slip disc, just wait 18 months and you won't have to have surgery. Oh, and why is that, Wendy? If anything that keeps someone from getting surgery, I think that's a great thing. So now what we're going to do is, since we put in these whites, we can go ahead and really pop in some beautiful highlights. Now, let's say I wanted to get a real beautiful, spectacular highlight. I could take my Sennelier, and Harvey Dinnerstein, my teacher at the academy, taught me, I remember one day I had this beautiful, beautiful whole pastel stick, and I was trying to get this light out at the National Academy School of Fine Arts, and I'm trying to get this light like real tiny like this, and I had this beautiful brand new pastel stick, and he dropped it to the ground. Like, oh my God, what did you do that for? And then he picked up a shard like this and he said, that's how you do the tight detail. So yeah, I had my moments where I was like, what? You know, it was funny. And there's a couple here, but they're really just kind of fuzzy. So let's work on some of the fuzziness over here. There we go. Now with the 1 second rule, I can see that they're a little too spectacular over here. I'll keep it and we'll just look at it for a little bit. We'll come back to it. And okay, so I think we're okay. Now let's try and pop out some of those lights in her eyes, okay? And we can do that. Shall I blow it up? Why not? Even though you'll see all the imperfections when we blow it up, but nonetheless, let's go ahead and let's see if we could just put some life into her eyes here. When we come in with the skin, we're going to add some really beautiful textures. Just put a little bit of life in those eyes, in that iris of hers. There we go. Whoop, I was working on the other eye and you couldn't see it. Wendy says, you amaze me, you make major detail out of such small painting. Thank you, I appreciate that. Always encouraged by you guys. Now, remember here on this eye, you're gonna have highlights, but they're gonna be, you know, much lower in value. Because in the shadow area, there can't be the same lights that are in the light side. They have to be darker. Now, Leah says, are you applying the white with a paper stump? Actually, yes. What I do is I take the pastel, let me zoom out. What I do is I take the pastel and I apply it or rub it onto a piece of sandpaper, and then with a really small stump, I just pull it off of there. And I find, Leah, that it gives me more control, you know? There are pencil lines, definitely, but they don't show up because they're so very thin, but you're going to see them here. So I'll even look bad for you guys, you know, to have you guys, but once we zoom out, you'll see they're so thin that they don't show up. We'll just put that there like so. And now right here we have some specular lights, you know, on the lower ridge of her eye there, of her eyelid. Just a little bit of a specular light, and then it comes out just a little bit there. Now we do have some lights right here, just on the under part of her eyelid, and then I have to ask myself, am I getting too light in areas? And absolutely yes. So, and that's where we really have to be hard on ourselves. And even though we might be like, wow, that looks great, we just have to calm it down. And same thing here on this side. I'm just going to calm that down by that was a little too much. There we go. There, just to bring those eyes to life, but also make sure we don't get hung up on effects and really pay attention to what's really happening. And that's where I have to really be careful. So you can see, now I did that. I'm going to take a sort of a more aggressive size stump, and I'm just going to get some pastel, and I'm going to work on some of the areas that are lighter and larger areas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to more or less scumble it in. Before I was applying it like real, like with tight detail. Let's see. And just come over here. And I may have to come back in with the airbrush. But as you can see right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scumble it a little bit. I'm going to sort of, at the same time, when you're doing the 1 second rule, you might want to try and feel that texture of her skin. It's not the easiest thing to do, but you know, try and see the little shapes, the little texture. Sort of like the wood grain that you see in a piece of wood. There's a grain in the skin, right? And it's really subtle, but if we really concentrate, we can pick that up. Now you can see that's a lot of pastel, but no worries. It's very malleable. I can decrease that. I can spread it around. A lot of different things we can do. And so we can definitely move around, like over here. And so if I do like load a lot of pastel, what I'll do is make sure I clean off the stump, and then I can come in and sort of spread what's on there as opposed to put more pastel down. Remember, I was pastel painting for like 30 years before I touched an airbrush, and so it's just natural that I added in pastel techniques into my airbrush paintings. Do you find, Leah, that when you're working in let's say oils, you find that your other techniques or your other mediums sort of come into play that normally wouldn't if you were just working with just one medium? here. We have some light. So right now I'm working on the whole face. Oh, when did I start the airbrush? Believe it or not, I started it in 2010. Around, I think I purchased one in 2009. I didn't do anything of consequence for the first year. But I really got serious in 2010. And the reason why I started it, because they were underpaintings for my pastel paintings. But then I started really falling in love with the airbrush itself, and sort of one thing took over, you know? Steve says the right icing on the cake. I haven't had cake in so long. I miss cake. I'm trying to be good. I wasn't the first part of this lockdown. I gained 10 pounds. There's no excuse. That was horrible of me. And so now I'm paying for it, working hard. And as you see, I'm just pulling that down, and I can see where either this is too light or maybe this has to come up to it. And I'm going to use this smaller stump because I think I could rub it in a bit easier and have a bit more control. So I'm just going to continue with the 1 second rule, right? And just pull that out. Now we also have to continue this light as it comes over here, but it is broken up and it is sort of like a border. It stops, and I can get rid of the pastel progressively by just tapping with the kneaded eraser, which is a pretty cool technique with the pastel. So Leah says that she does find all mediums she uses informs her process, and she likes the contrast of my airbrush with the texture of pastel. Oh, thank you. And I think, you know, having more than one medium is definitely very, very good. A good thing to have in your toolbox, right, guys? I think that's so important to have that. The experience of working with something else and, you know, having solutions, let's say, in pastel, when I'm working in airbrush, and say, okay, well, why can't I just put that in there? And so that's where it was born, pretty much. There is a thing called, everyone knows, with airbrush, a thing called the blue shift, and you don't see it too much in normal painting or in pastel, but in airbrush you do see it. When you paint white over a darker area in airbrush, the white actually turns blue. There's a blue shift, and so when I first dealt with it, I was like, what is that? I never saw a blue shift. The only time I seen it was when I was drawing, and then I used white pastel over graphite, and you would see that sort of weird shift of tone. But in airbrush, it was just something I'd never seen before. So I said, well, why not just go ahead and incorporate at the later stages pastel, since I'm working on paper anyway. And so that's pretty much how this whole technique came about. And then I'm always worrying about edges, right? The edges are so important. How one thing borders up against another. And I always say, when you're painting a portrait, don't worry about a likeness, it will reveal itself. Tone says that he can counteract the blue shift with a touch of orange with white. Yes, I did find that, definitely. Now, I hear a lot of people using, just recently, burnt sienna is really good. to combat blue shift. So that's very interesting. And I can come back and I could calm that down. So right here, I don't know what I was thinking, but this is way too powerful. So I'm just going to calm that down. And I find sometimes when I'm painting, you know, and then I'm like, what in the world was I thinking? Where was my mind when I decided to do that, right? So good news, guys. Hey, Heath, good to see you. How are you, my friend? I have an article in this month's Airbrush Step-by-Step magazine, and it's a portrait of Soraya, and I basically show the whole, I think it's like 21 steps of how to paint the portrait using this, and that's in this month's Airbrush Step-by-Step magazine. And that was a nice surprise that I got that. And now I did put that highlight, right? But I can see that the lips are a little opaque, right? We have to make those lips transparent. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put no pastel on my stump there. It has some residual pastel from the last time, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scumble that in, and you can see all of a sudden now the lips have a transparency that they didn't have, you know. And thank you, Steve. And let's see, again, let's see if we could just start to get some transparent areas, some transparent patches in those lips there, and then we can come to Wendy says I'm the lip master. I appreciate that. Sounds like something the Fons would be, right? He would be the lip master. Oh, I'm dating myself. Happy Days, I'm old if I know what Happy Days is. So as you can see, I'm just very slowly building things up. I'm going to come back to those lips, and it's a little powerful here again. So, you know, it's always, you know, pushing back and going back in and, you know, making sure you get those subtleties, and it's not going to happen right away. Sometimes it does, and when it does, hey, I'll take it, right? So, let's see. Okay, so I have my medium mixture, and I'm going to go ahead and darken this area right here. I'm going to be a good distance away because I don't have the light mixture. So with the medium mixture, I just have to be a little more subtle with that. But then I'm really trying to get this whole head to be round. Well, I do talk for 2 hours, yes, and I guess it's a good thing when it's over. For you guys. And so if I zoom out, we can start to see what things are looking at, you know? And so, okay, so you can see things are starting to come together slowly. Of course, we can come in with more detail, definitely. And since we have the white pastel, let's see if we can do something with that little design on her shoulder. Now, this is where we're going to come in, not necessarily with the Pit Pastel, but there's another tool I think you guys would really love. And thank you so much, Lee. I appreciate that so much. Very encouraging. Now look at this thing. If you're ever doing drawings and you just want to have that really beautiful fine line that, you know, you would really have a hard time with this. This is by Fons and Porter, and it's actually something that like a tailor would use, and they would mark their, where they're going to cut. And a friend from England told me about this, and I was like, really? Once I tried it, I never went back. So this is such a great tool, and I highly, highly recommend it. So now we have this little area right here, and by using this Fons and Porter, we can just get to the thinnest, most subtlest line here, the subtlest white line. It's like a 0.3 mechanical pencil almost. It's really great. And so right now I'm just going to concentrate on those areas where it's just the smallest line of white. There we go. And you can see we can really get that sort of almost tapestry-like quality. Now there are areas where the white pastel will definitely work, so we want to use both of them. Yeah, I thought we would be done today, but looking at this little thing, this is probably going to take a little bit of our time. And we still have a ways to go with her hair, right? I don't want to make any shortcuts when it comes to that hair. And like I said earlier, the hair sort of reveals itself when we're paying attention to the larger forms, and then it's sort of the smaller forms kind of come together. So you see I'm going to move back and forth through my Fons and Porter and the white pastel. Right here. There we go. So this would be really difficult. Now, he says, could that be used for straight hair? All the time, my friend, all the time. And good question. The Fons, yes. Hey, that's very cool. So we're going to continue moving around. So you see how this little area here, that would be almost impossible without my Fons and Porter. Of course it would be possible for someone better than me, but for me, it just makes life so much easier just to get that insignia. And then, hey, Brad, how's it going? Better late than ever, my friend. I'm so glad you can make it. Now, remember the whole thing about setting up the lights and the highlights? And that's what we want to do. We want to set things up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to darken this area so we can set up the lights coming over here. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work. And this is where, like, control comes into play with the airbrush. You want to get around. There we go. And so now we're just a little more set up for the white highlights over here on this side of the insignia. It's pretty cool. It's like a fleur-de-lis or something, right? I don't know. So the 1 second rule is going to keep me from going south, right? Keep me from doing my own thing and really trying to pay attention to the design itself rather than what my mind. So I'm going to look for a second, and then I'm going to paint for a second. And even doing that, I find myself having a hard time getting accuracy. But if I know if I didn't do that, I would be all over the place. Close-up looks like a tattoo. Oh, cool. So you see there's a lot of light being hit right here. So we just want to make sure. And then we'll just calm it down. I'm going to squint my eyes, look at the big shapes first. And then, so it's kind of large over there. It will come together, trust me guys. And let's go ahead with some tight detail here. When I would be at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I look at the portraits that Angela did, you know, like the one in the American Wing where she's wearing this blue dress and all these designs. And I used to, you know, when I was going to the academy, and I used to, even now I go there, and I just stare at it like, holy cow, you know, this is just so amazing. How did he do it? And as I get older, I just realized that he stuck with it, right? And I think that's what he did. And that's what we have to do. We have to stick with it and, you know, be tenacious. Keep going for that really, like, knockout detail, right? And it's not easy. But I find it's not as hard as we think it is, especially when we just, you know, calm it down and look at the big picture and go from there. And then I can always come back and calm this down. So right here, like, that's really powerful, Tim. What's he thinking? So let's go ahead and just tap with the eraser, and we can just calm down the white as much or as little as we want, which is really good. And let's see. I'm not going to go too crazy, but it's good to see this. You know, how to handle such, you know, detailed oriented aspects of your work. And I really neglect to stay in one area. Partly because my mind gets bored when I stay in one area, and also I want to paint the ensemble and not just the part. So I don't want this to be a portrait about this insignia, but I know that if it's not done right, it's going to hurt my work as a whole. And let's see if we can just pull some of this here. We got a lot of work to do here, but I'm just going to indicate just a little bit, and then we can go from there. But I definitely want to move around. I don't want to stay here. That wouldn't be a good idea. Not only that, it would keep me from seeing the whole and, you know, get tied up in these details. But if I pull out, you can see that things are, you know, they're not too bad. And I can also tone this whole area down here. So with the medium mixture, I'm just going to come in and darken this. It does two things. It kind of calms down this little insignia, and you know, doesn't make it too outstanding. How do you say? Just, it doesn't make it more important than it needs to be, right, guys? I think. So Brad says this is outstanding. I appreciate that, my friend. You know, little by little. So he says, Tim, can you show the white Fons and Porter? Yes, this is great. It's on eBay, and no, it's on Amazon. There's a link in the description, I believe, in my Amazon store, so you can pick that up. I think it's like $6 or $7, maybe $8, and you get like 3 refills. But when you're drawing, it definitely is a game changer. It doesn't erase as much as white pastel, but it does erase. Just don't go crazy with it, because then you're going to pay the price, because it won't erase. But definitely experiment with it and just get a feel for it before you know, really go to town. So I'm going to go back to my dark mixture, and I can see on this side, I can definitely darken this up. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Now this is all blurry on this side because the way the camera is, and also I fixed it in my Photoshop type program, Krita, and you can see I want this to go further back. So I'm just going to continue darkening, make sure I have. And so I'm just going to darken this area. So it's really good to continue moving around. It's nice to get into detail, but that could be a slippery slope, you know. So Steve says, yes, I agree, Tim, it's all about the face and those eyes. It really is, right? I mean, that is, you know, that's the star of the show when you're doing a portrait, right? So you always got to make sure that the star is getting the most attention. So as I'm painting, I always keep the eyes just a step ahead of everything else, and then everything else catches up. But even at the end, where I want the viewer's eye to go is at those eyes, in particular, one eye more than the other. Usually the eye that's in usually it's the eye that's in the light side that gets the most attention. So now if I'm looking at this, I can see that this is her breast area and this is her hip behind. So I have to try and indicate that a little bit. So I'm just going to erase just a little bit. I think that aggressive erase is a little too harsh, because when you go too harsh, you'll find that the eraser does even create a little bit of a weird blue shift. But in paper, using this color line paper by Canson, 184 pound, and it's called Pebble Gray. There we go. So I am getting that separation, which is really important. And I also see that this is slightly darker in value over here than her hip as it's going back. I want to make that hip move back, right? I don't want that hip coming on the same plane as her breast. That would not be good. So that's my job, is to try and create that illusion that that's going back the best that I can, right? You know? And I'm going to use my freehand shield because I really don't want to lose that white. If I lose that white, I'm going to be sad. So there we go. So I'm keeping that really hard edge, right? Oh, you're welcome. Definitely, Steve. Yes, that one eye is always, there's always going to be that one spot that gets a little bit more attention than everything else. That's the goal, right? I've always concentrated on portraits my whole life, to a fault, right? Because I'm not as good with backgrounds as I am with portraits, but I'm working on it. But yeah, I mean, I've always indulged myself by painting portraits. So look at that beautiful edge, right? Just this beautiful, elegant edge that I didn't want to lose in the photograph. So with the freehand shield, I was able to get that. Now, I wouldn't want to do all that work and then lose it in the index finger, right? And focus, yes, lead the viewer's eye. And that's one of the things I'm going to be touching on my digital painting channel, is how when we take a photo reference, and we might be very happy with that, we can still tweak it in our program, right? In our digital art program. So that's what I did there. So I'm definitely going further with that. Leah says, it's beautiful. Could you use blue shift to your advantage? Very good question. Yes, you definitely can. I've seen people do that when they're doing, like snow and stuff like that. You definitely could. It's a weird look though, Leah. It's something that very rarely looks good. But yeah, you can definitely, and that would be having like the best foresight to say, I know this is going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and use the blue shift to my advantage, definitely. Now, one of the things I like doing is having a test sheet, right? Like let's say I'm doing a large portrait and I have it on masonite with gesso and marble dust. I'll have a smaller version so I can see what the blue shift will do before I put it down. Unfortunately, I had many paintings destroyed with my blue shift, but that was just because I wasn't really prepared, and I didn't test it first. But that's definitely a great insight, is that, yeah, anything, even what could be seen as an accident, if done correctly, right, could work for our advantage, definitely. Oh, blue shift. I was just, Bradley, talking about why I use white pastel as opposed to white airbrush at the end like this, because avoiding blue shift is the main reason. But also another reason, guys, is that I used to work at Amazon, in the Amazon corporate offices in Jersey City, and that was like an hour and a half from my house with a car, 2 trains, and each way I would draw on this tinted paper like this, and white pastel and pencil. And then when that job went away, I was working in airbrush, and I was like, what if I did what I did with pencil, but did it with ink? And that's how this whole thing was born, this whole technique. Because this is what I used to do with pencil, with the white pastel. So now it sort of comes together. Hey Kayla, how you doing? Good to see you. Oh, how you doing, Nekos? Good to see you from the salon. How are you feeling? And how are your dads doing, okay? Let them know I said hello. Oh, that's so great. So Neko, I'm so glad to see you. That's so cool. We had so many great people here today. Thank you everyone for hanging out with me, and Leah and Wendy and Bill and Steve and everybody, Mike and Neko, and just thank you guys for taking the time to hang out with me. I don't take it lightly, and so that's exciting. So happy that all you guys are here. Now, so you see I'm pretty much working here, but then I could say to myself, this is a little bit light, and let's see if I can just darken it up just a little bit. So I'm going to take, once again, this is my medium mixture. Let me double check to make sure. Always double check. Is that the medium? I think. Okay, let's do a test here. Here's the medium, I think. And yes, so this is the medium mixture. Usually I remember, but today I didn't. Well, thank you, Leah. It's so good to have you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, this is, I really, really love, talking with other artists, especially during this whole COVID-19. We all seem to be so isolated, am I right? you know? And this is just something that I feel is such a great thing with technology that we're able to hang out, talk about art, and laugh a little bit. Oh, so Brad says, oh, well, thank you, Brad. Brad's one of my students, Leah. He's always, always happily talking about the classes he takes. He's a great student. Leah is an amazing artist, Brad. She does not need to take classes from me, that's for sure. You should see her work. Just amazing, just unbelievable. She is fantastic. And I've been seeing Leah, we have exhibited together over the years. I think at the Salmagundi Club. I think we exhibited together at the National Arts Club, right? And that is so nice for you to say, Leah. No, you can learn from me. That's for sure. You're amazing. Yes, we have, and it was always an honor, and I always love seeing your work. Yes, so guys, I exhibit in New York City at like different art societies and everything, and Leah has too over the years. So we have crossed paths from time to time, our work. So it's just such an honor. So now with the medium mixture, I can go ahead and just do a little subtleties here and there. Remember, I said I was going to darken this. So let me stay true to my word, and let's just darken that just a little bit. Now there's going to be a pencil line. I'm going to have to live with it, I mean, I can't get away with all my pencil lines. But at this point, my thinking is this. Don't make any big reconstructive decisions now. You're committed to your decisions, but take notes and make sure that we learn for our next painting. So each painting just gets better and better in the sense that we are learning from our mistakes and just more efficient, and just saying to ourselves, I'm not going to do that again because I wanted to fix it and I couldn't. And I always try and make sure that that particular painting, the next particular painting is about fixing what I couldn't in the last painting or avoiding it. There we go. And let's see if we can just pull this dark down just a little bit. Oh, look, this is something we have. We have some fun stuff to do with the white pastel, and let's make this happen. Just gonna do some dark accents here and there. Okay, so we have that little bracelet that she has there, and I'm going to take my pastel and blow this up. So Steve says, awesome artist, you do great work and the top of the game, always a pleasure. Well, that means so much to me, Steve. I always so glad to hang out with you, always appreciate your encouragement, and I look forward to it. And Steve does some amazing portraits. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you did an eagle. Is that true? That's your eagle, which is just like out of this world. So I really love that. That's not taking as well. There are times when oh, Steve, you have a great night, my friend. And always loving the work that you're doing. So keep inspiring me, okay? I need it. I'm just gonna hit some of these little lights here. Always think Vermeer, right? Yes. Yeah, just that little bit of jewelry here I forgot about, Steve. Just a little bit. It's funny, you don't really have to just do too much detail with jewelry. Just a little bit here and there, really just, the mind just says, oh, that's jewelry, right? It's funny. Okay, so right here we have a little bit darker. So I guess it's from the arm touching against the breast and it's turning. So let's see if we can go ahead and make that look like what we are seeing. So I'm going to use my freehand shield, perpendicular in that parallel. And we're just going to start getting that turn. Now we may just have to come in with the dark mixture because this might not be dark enough. But it's always better to go lighter and then darken up as opposed to go too dark and then having to light up. Having to lighten up, that's not good. It's much harder. There we go. And right here. Now I can come in and let's see. So Steve, you have a great night and I will talk to you during the week, my friend. Now I think I'm going to have to come in with that dark mixture and just to really, and I'm going to wipe off this freehand shield. If I don't wipe it off, it could still be on there and I'll just transfer ink and that will definitely turn me into from doing construction to damage control. I don't want to do damage control, that's for sure. There we go. And as you can see, I'm looking too. So if I look at my reference, I can see that I can slightly just dust this back just a tiny bit. Now I'm going to be about 3 inches from that surface. And remember, the closer you are, the tighter the lines and the harder the edge. But the further you're back, the softer and more beautiful gradations. So you see, now we can start to get a feeling of what's happening in here. But since I darkened this up, this all of a sudden got lighter, right? So we can go ahead and darken that up. So I don't mind moving it around at this stage, you know, because you already done your drawing. You're not going to miss anything. So I'm going to use my freehand shield. I'm really going to touch on this edge here. And I'm going to crawl along the surface, just like so. Now, crawling along the surface, oh, thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. That's so wonderful for you to say. And I really, really, really am inspired by that and encouraged. And as you can see, like, as long as I clean my freehand shield and then wipe it off on my shirt, I don't care much for my shirt. I should care more for my shirt, but I just wipe it on my shirt. I'm wearing a gray shirt, so I guess that helps, right? So, let's see. So now we can see when I flip it that things are more in line, right? That, you know, when you darken one area, it's like throwing a pebble into, you know, a very still lake. When you draw that pebble, it's just a ripple effect that sort of is much bigger than itself and changes everything around it. And that's what happens, you know. So once I darken this area, it's like, oh, now I have to darken this area. And it's sort of like a chain reaction. But as you can see, like if I want to have tight detail in here, I go close. But I'm not going to have any kind of gradation. I'm going to basically, you know, have sharp lines. But if I want soft areas and I want to do a large blend, then I would just increase my distance, that's all. And then we'll just come over here like so. And remember, always perpendicular and not parallel. And this way you don't have this sort of hard edge on the edge there. And so now squinting my eyes, I ask myself, now what is too light and what's too dark perhaps? And as I do that, I definitely can see that this area has definitely gotten too light. So I'm going to be about, I would say about 4 inches away. And I'm just going to dust this area. Now I'm going to dust the whole area because I don't want to lose the triceps coming down and the biceps. I don't want to lose that detail. So I'm going to be about 4 inches away, and I'm going to make sure I dust the whole area. Remember that the airbrush shoots in a cone. And so you have this cone, and the further away, the larger the cone is. And the larger the cone, the more of an even spray will occur. So I'm increasing my distance to get that evenness, and I don't lose that detail that I worked so hard for. Probably in week 2, I would say, right guys? About week 2 I did that. So now when I darken that down, it feels right. And probably even you go a little bit darker. But we'll see. We don't want to have, you're welcome, Leah. Thank you. We don't want to, Rome hasn't been built in a day, so I don't want to like make sure this arm is just totally perfect right now. I want to make sure that the rest is, and I'll get back to that arm, and that arm will come together at the end. But it's that whole thing of just thinking about having this be the focus and not get too involved there. But now I sort of squint my eyes and I say to myself, okay, where else am I too light or too dark? And I think in this area I'm definitely too light. So I'm going to do that same thing, but I really like that kind of hard edge there. So I'm going to use my freehand shield. I'm going to be about 5 inches from the subject, and I'm just going to dust. So I actually make that edge even stronger. And then there's a little bit of an edge right here. And let's see, where can I put that? Now one trick, this is a pretty cool trick. If you put, so let's say you're using airbrush and you put the airbrush right there, it's going to get like a hard line. Let me see if I can blow that up. Let's see. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to come out here. Okay, and I'm just going to show the difference of, let's see, trying to find, okay, right about here. And so here I have the freehand shield right on the surface, right? It's pretty harsh when I have it right on the surface. But if I take the freehand shield and just put my thumb underneath it, right? And it has a little bit of a distance away, you'll see that it's a much softer edge. Because like here, it's right on the edge and you get that real hard edge. But if I put my finger underneath and I spray, then I get a soft edge. So that's a different way of controlling your edge work, right guys? And just really manipulating the airbrush and having it do exactly what you want to do. It's almost like, oh, thanks Leah, I appreciate that. It's almost like, guys, when you see a calligrapher. I remember when I was a kid, like 15, I got a book on calligraphy, and I was just drawing out the letters and then just filling it in. But I knew a calligrapher was using the tools at his advantage or her advantage, right? And so as I'm learning airbrush, I'm learning how to use the tools to do things much more effortlessly. So And that's what I want you guys to do is to learn the airbrush to the point where you can manipulate its inherent qualities to do what you want it to do, you know? That helps. It helps me as I'm learning this medium over the years. There's always deeper we can go, right? There's always more to learn, like chess, you know? Never get to the point where we stop learning. Okay, so great. So I'm back with the medium mixture, and once again, I'm just squinting my eyes, and I'm just going to dust over this area here. Bring that arm a little bit darker. I think if I left the arm too too light, I think it would have competed with her face. What do you guys think? That might be one of the reasons why I could definitely, maybe even accentuate the dark of that arm. And definitely I can come in and darken this area over here, and that will help bring out the design there. Or I can just come in with the Fons and Porter and do that really nice design. Okay, cool. So right now we have this like real blurry edge, if you can see in the reference. So what I want to do is I want to have good aim, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sort of halo, the way a lens would. Let's see if it's successful. What that does, it just will push that hip back further so it's not like right up on the same plane as her hair and breast area. And what I can do is I could just increase my distance as I go, and as I increase my distance it gets this like really nice blend. So I'm just blending that out. This is actually the medium mixture. And so, yes, that's the medium mixture. Now, what I can do as well is maybe try and lighten this up. Now, I use so many different kinds of erasers. And my thing is, use the least aggressive eraser that you can. But if it's not, then get more aggressive as you go, right? You want to, because with airbrush, there's this thing called overspray, which is really only with airbrush. So we have to find ways to, as Leah said, using the blue shift to your advantage, we can use overspray to our advantage. But sometimes it can be too much of a good thing, like here, and the overspray exceeded what I wanted to do. So right here, I can just get rid of anything that went over, and hopefully I'm achieving, the ink it's so cool, Leah, so the very good question. Yes, the ink is definitely erasable. My inks that I mix myself, I dilute them and I add things like distilled water and glycerin to keep from tip drying. But they're made from Speedball, Super Black India ink. And they are erasable because it's really just carbon, water, and a little bit of lacquer. So they don't really hold. They don't stain the surface, let's say like acrylic inks would. Now, on paper they erase a little bit less than if they were on wood panel. But it's really great because if you have pencil lines, the pencil lines will actually erase underneath the ink, which is really great. And that's why I started many years ago using India ink as an underpainting, because I was able to get rid of those pencil lines. For the most part, sometimes I may get a little overzealous, and they do become part of the painting, Leah, but yeah, this is really fantastic, So Brad says he's been trying to talk Tim into making his inks available in 5-gallon pails. That would be a lot of ink, my friend. And that's funny. Yeah, you know, and the whole idea of the inks, I found that they were just so perfect. They were just so perfect for the airbrush, because when you work in acrylic, like I also do, you find that it's a little dense with the binder, and also once you put that acrylic down, it's over. There's no erasing it. I mean, you can erase it to some extent if it's thinner, but it tends to trap whatever's underneath it too. And I think that's what causes a problem for me. And that's when I started to really want to make my own formulations. And hopefully other artists will enjoy it, you know. And so far it's been pretty good. You know, artists have been liking these ink mixtures. And it's always growing, you know. I'm always trying to improve them and, you know, thinking of, you know, how we could avoid mistakes and problems. And that's one of the things I actually added glycerin to it to keep it from drying, you know, because you have ink or paint and then you have air, and that dries at the tip, and that causes a lot of the clogs and whatnot, you know. Brad says his Extreme Patriot Arrow will never see acrylic paint. That's true. You should have an airbrush just dedicated for inks. And I think that's a very good philosophy, right? Definitely. Did I drink all my tea? Let me see. Definitely try that, guys. Pomegranate tea. It's incredible. I think it's called Pomegranate Delight. And then I add lemon to it. But it's really fantastic, really refreshing. Well, thanks, Leah. I appreciate that. And, you know, I'm always thinking of fellow artists, right? And seeing problems. And one of the things I really hope that a lot of artists use who work in other mediums to use the airbrush and the India inks for underpaintings. It could open up, you know, new possibilities, and, you know, that other mediums couldn't do, and to maybe use that as an underpainting would be great, because I did that for years just with my pastels before I fell in love with airbrush as a medium in itself. I really did. I mean, I just love the way that we can, you know, manipulate and paint without ever touching the surface. And I thought that was really wonderful, and just those subtle blends that we can get that I had so much difficult doing with a regular paintbrush. So for me, it was like an answer to a prayer, you know. Same thing with pastel. There's only so much that I can do with pastel, but it seems like the airbrush kind of liberated me, right? And Leah says that she did acrylic long ago with airbrush. You did? Wow, that's so cool to hear. So you like the airbrush, but not the acrylic. You know, also, P.H. Martin makes these incredible India inks, and you could work in color with that. And so that's so cool that you worked in airbrush. That's really fantastic. Oh, that's great.
I don't know that one.
My Alexa just went off. I didn't even say Alexa's name, and Alexa went off. Ink is amazing, right, guys? It really does, because it's inherently like water. And so when you dilute it, it's so, how do you say, the inks are so intense. Like, you could never spray ink straight out of the ink bottle that you get from Speedball. It's just so dense, you know? Yeah, Alexa does that. Do you guys have Alexa? And I'm afraid to even say her name because she's going to go off. Yes, diluted. You can dilute ink way down. Like, it's just amazing. Oh, Leah, thank you. You know, I know you can definitely, you would definitely, you know, master the airbrush in no time, you know, because what you do in oils and just so amazing. So you can do that. You can definitely do airbrush. I would love for you to, I would love to see, uh, you know, what you can do with it. So Tone doesn't want the Alexa. Okay, so a lot of people are afraid of the those things in the house. You know, those personal, like Alexa, the Amazon things. A lot of people don't want that. Aw, Wendy is pretty cool. So it's such a great group and to hang out and lift each other up, and that's what I love about these live streams. Last week, so weird, about this time, somebody complained that they found my live stream offensive, right? And then right in the middle of the live stream towards the end, my live stream went blank. And my live stream was taken off, and um, all of a sudden, they said that my live stream broke community guidelines, and it was so weird, right? So it was unbelievable. But they resolved it, thank God. And we didn't do anything different last week than this week. But I always say, if you have enemies, you're doing something right. Oh, cool. So that's cool. Wendy is very good. A lot of information, Leah. She has a lot of great information. And Wendy says she loves being recorded. That's funny. You guys are hilarious. And so right here we can see a little bit of a darker, there we go. Just look at some, we're almost done. We're in the last 6 minutes. So unless my video is taken down for breaking community guidelines, I'm going to give you guys the full 2 hours, which is 11:30. So we're in the home stretch. So yeah, Willie asked if I was going to finish this one within that time period, but as you guys can see, yeah, I didn't want to rush the hair, and so that's something I really wanted to. Yeah, they didn't say. I mean, they found when they did the review, Wendy, that I didn't break any guidelines. So somebody got offended, but I looked at it over and over again, and never have I, you know, seen anything that could have been construed. So, and when they went ahead and reviewed it, they agreed. So they put back the video, which is good. The creative guidelines. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. So now I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to think Premiere, right? And I'm just going to use my white pastel to get some specular highlights. We'll get, you know, more more detailed highlights down the line. But we're going to just squint our eyes and look for those big lights, you know? You guys are very kind to me. Thank you. I don't know. I have I try and, not to make anyone upset, but invariably, somehow it seems to happen. So, I don't know. Just to pull that hair further up, and I can calm that down with the need eraser, of course, right, guys? Oh no, no violence. But thank you, Wendy. I'll keep that in mind. Wendy's my muscle. That's funny, guys. Well, thank you, Brad, and I hope you have a great night. And I know you always want to say your good nights before 11:30, and I appreciate that. Oh man, Wendy has more skills than I thought. And so I'm just going to let's see. Yeah, I'm going to have to calm down that highlight there, but I'm just going to put that in. And remember that 1 second rule, so important, right? The 1 second rule. But next week is definitely going to be part 7, and definitely going to be the completion of this painting, which is always kind of sad when it's over. Kind of liked working on this one of Jean. But you see, like, I couldn't rush that hair, right? I mean, that's something. Oh, the 1 second rule, yes. And the 1 second rule is just, I don't have to tell you about this, Leah, but you paint for a second, and then you look for a second, then paint for the second, right? That's the whole thing with the 1 second rule. So it keeps me from going and thinking about my shopping list when I should be thinking about the painting, right, Leah? So my mind tends to wander, and before you know it, I'm thinking about something other than painting, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do? So Tone says, do I have an idea of what I'm going to paint next? I really don't, but that's the exciting part, is, what's going to be the next one in 2 weeks. So yeah, something different, I think. Avant-garde, maybe? Well, as avant-garde as I can get. I'm pretty boring. Let's see. So Tone says, Corona. Okay. Hopefully you're talking about the beer. And my guest says they didn't like the fact that you were painting beauty, not Warhammer figures. Could be. It could be, my friend. Definitely. No viruses. I'd rather paint the Corona beer with a lime. That's what I'm going to do. No more airplay to the virus that needs to be. Right, guys? So we are at 11:30. We made it. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for hanging out with me. It's such an honor. Just was wonderful. And you guys made my week, as you always do. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with little old me. And we got to talk about art and pass some time together. And I think that's a great thing. Everybody, please stay safe and healthy. And if someone's not wearing a mask, make sure they wear a mask around you, okay? And God bless everybody. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, for hanging out. Wendy, Mike, Steve, and Willie, and Leah, Tone, you guys are all amazing. John, and anyone I missed out. Take care.